you, and welcome to everyone. We welcome you to our Meet the Candidate Night, sponsored by the League of Women Voters here in Davis County. The League of Women Voters' mission is to engage citizens in their government by providing nonpartisan voter information. The League does not support or oppose political parties or candidates. And that's one thing I love about them. This is up to you to decide. We have a team of League members here tonight. If they're here, raise their hand. They've got, bunches of them. Thank you. And I am Joanne Hanson and will be your moderator tonight. Our timekeeper is Abby Child. Abby, raise your hand. Abby and Belle, Matt, and David are from the Bountiful City Youth Council, and they will be picking up questions. If you have a question to ask some of our candidates, you can just raise your hand and they'll come and pick it up. Written. Yes. Our voters guide that the League of Women Voters puts out is found on that's not it. There we go. Vote411.org. You received on your seat tonight some information about items that will be on the ballot, which include constitutional amendments and non-binding opinion question 1. There are also at least 3, I think 4 propositions that are on the ballot as well. So the information on all the candidates is located on this website, plus information on these questions and amendments. We are recording this event tonight, and you can find it on our Facebook page at League of Women Voters, Davis, Utah. And I just wanted to remind you to please turn off your cell phones. The general election is Tuesday, November the 6th, but your vote by mail ballots should be arriving as early as this Friday or Saturday. Voter registration forms sent by mail have to be postmarked at least 30 days before the election, but you might still be able to vote or register if you go to the state's website, which is vote.utah.gov. Or you can register in person at the county clerk's office. All right, let's begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we've asked David Benyon if he would please lead us.
Join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our candidates are seated up here before you. Out in the hall, we also asked the state school board candidates to at least set up a display. Patrick Riley and Laura Belknap, anyone in South Davis County will have an opportunity to vote for one or the other of those to represent us at the state school board. Patrick Riley is a school teacher and teacher advocate, and Laura Belknap is president of Utah Online Schools. They had a debate at Viewmont High a few weeks ago, and the Sutherland Institute recorded that. We invite you to go visit their website and watch the debate. Or they are also having a Meet the Candidate night this coming Thursday at Centennial Junior High at 7 o'clock. Okay, our candidates that we have here up in front, you can see their names, but we have for County Commissioner, Tamara Long and Bob Stevenson. In District 18, Alba, and Tim Hawkins. And then in District 19, Courtney Jones, she could not be here tonight. and Joe Speciale, and Ray Ward. And then District 20, Melissa cannot be here tonight. Her mother-in-law passed away. But we have Matt Lusty, who's going to at least introduce her, and Ryan Jones. So we'd like to welcome all of you. We're so thrilled that you're here. The candidates will have 2-minute questions, and our timer will indicate as that counts down to 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and stop. We'll start our questions. We'll begin with Tamara, and then we'll alternate who gets the first question as we go along tonight. In the interest of time, please hold your applause until the end, and we thank you again so much for attending this evening. All right, let's begin with the first question. Would you please introduce yourself in 2 minutes and tell us why you're running for office, the relevant skills and experience that you have that you hope will help you in your job, and maybe tell us 2 or 3 of your important priorities. All right, Tamara.
My name is Tamara Long. I've grown up pretty much in Davis County my entire life. My dad's moved us a couple of times for almost 2 years, so for 56 years I've lived in Davis County. I went to Clearfield High School, and I should say Pioneer Elementary, which got torn down unfortunately. It's a neat old elementary school. Went to North Davis Junior High. I got married and worked at many jobs, one of which was a very diverse company that he had about 5 or 6 different companies. His main one was a gasoline station company. He had 21 gas stations throughout 7 states. And I ran a number of his companies for him, and one of which was a leasing and sales company. I did that for 6 years. And I finished raising my kids. I did a lot of volunteer work at the schools. I tutored a lot with the Spectrum program. And then I just kept staying at home and supporting the schools and volunteering as much as I could. Then I became a crossing guard for 2 years part-time and 8 years full-time. And I ran for mayor and became a mayor, and then I did my 4 years as mayor, and then I ran for county commissioner. And I have my interest in the county is trying to make sure that the growth everything is done properly so that we can have plenty of culinary water for people. In my city, we had to do a moratorium on building because we didn't have enough water shares for the people, so we had to do a moratorium until we could acquire enough water shares for culinary water for our water tanks and such, so that we had water for the people according to the state code. And I have a lot of, I support the base a lot. I do a lot, I've done volunteering up there and have tried to maintain the easements and did the best I could in my city. Time's up, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you, Bob.
My name is Bob Stevenson. Appreciate you coming out this evening. It's actually pretty nice to be able to see the numbers that are here. It's impressive, and thank you for taking the time out on Monday evening. Presently, I'm serving as mayor of Layton City. I've been in the position for 5 years now. I did serve on the Layton City Council going way back between 82 and 92 for 3 terms. My political career at that time kind of came to an end because my wife came home and let me know that she was having twins, and she told me my political career was over at that point in time. And so there was a break of about 25 years between then and when I did run for mayor. During that period of time, my career was with Nestle. You're probably all familiar with Nestle candy bars and the different Nestle products. I worked for Nestle for 35 years. Spent the last 15 years working basically corporately, dealing with over a business that most of my business was done back east and on the West Coast. Had a lot of experience that I found as far as being mayor to be very, very helpful, because you learn and understand how to work with people and how to be able to try to get things done. Part of the responsibility that we had during my career was the fact that you were given your assignment, what was there, and you were expected to make it happen. And that's part of what we've tried to do in Layton City in the past 5 years also, is instead of just doing things the same old, we've gone in and tried to figure out ways that we could do things to basically make Layton City a better place. And Layton City actually is a very, very good town. Just to give you a quick situation on this is that we went and figured out how we can increase our sales tax, which is probably the most fair sales tax. At the same time, we lowered for 2 years in a row our property tax. We saw that our revenues were coming in strong and we did not need to have property tax at the level, so we turned to that drop. But these are some of the things that I'd like to see in the county too, is we don't need to do business the way we've been doing it. We need to be smart and be able to improve business the way the future will help bring us into a better county than we have. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Adam.
Good evening, my name is Adam Alba. I am running for House District 18. And the reason that I decided to run is the day before the filing deadline, which was back in March, I learned that the election last year for District 18 was uncontested. And there was something that felt wrong about that to me, and so I decided, well, it's something like an $85 filing fee. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I believe in having our legislative leaders being accountable to their constituents and to being challenged, and to having them, be forced to listen to us. And that's to honor those principles. That's the reason why I decided to run. And it's my first time running, but I think I have a lot of good experience, a good life experience to represent the constituents of District 18, which is Centerville and Farmington. I am the son of a Mexican immigrant on my father's side, and I am a descendant of Mormon pioneers on my mother's side. And that life experience has qualified me to understand a lot of different perspectives and to communicate effectively with a lot of different people. And in addition to that life experience, I have a lot of professional leadership experience. I'm a trial attorney, and in that role I am forced to listen to the other side a lot and to frequently try to make agreements and come to conclusions and come to situations that benefit all the parties involved. And so that experience qualifies me to represent District 18. And my time's almost up, but I just want to say that some of my priorities will be education, most importantly, and then access to affordable health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting events like this, which are important to have this kind of discussion. I was first elected to the Utah House about 4 years ago, and so I'm running for re-election. My background and training is I'm another lawyer, so you're stuck. If you're in our district, you're stuck with a lawyer. I started out doing interesting law, sort of appellate constitutional law and things like that, and I kind of took a Green Acres move and came to Utah to work for a nonprofit, a public interest group called Trout Unlimited, where we worked on natural resource conservation and water law and policy. A few years ago, I took a job with the brine shrimp industry. And so my daughter says, "Dad, you're doing it all wrong. You're moving down the food chain. You go from fish to fish food. You're not supposed to do that." But it's been a good career for me, and I was always interested in politics, but didn't think it was something that I was ever going to do. And then because of my work in public policy, I became re-energized in terms of what can be done in the public space. Ran for election and was fortunate to win and to represent the citizens of my district for the past 4 years, and I hope that I've done a good job and earned their trust for another term. My area of emphasis, and we all have our specialties, not surprisingly, it's natural resources, so I work a lot on water, water conservation, air quality, and issues like that. I'm also very focused on processes and trying to make sure that our processes are fair and that they lead to good outcomes. If you ask people my reputation in the legislature, it's that of a problem solver. I try to bring people together to solve tough problems, and every bill, every issue I've worked on, that's the approach that I take, is try to bring people to the table, find the common ground, and then find the solutions that work best for Utah. So I hope, again, that I've earned the trust of the citizens to serve for another 2 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Joe.
That mic I don't think works.
This one.
Hello.
Oh,
Yeah. My name is Joe Speciale. I'm running for Utah House District 19. Truthfully, it's funny when people say they're qualified for a position like this. I don't know there's a lot of people that would, when they're running, are actually qualified in the way that we want them to be. And I don't know if I'd want like a lifetime politician to be running, or if I'd vote for him at least. I'm not a politician. I haven't spent my whole life in local politics. I haven't spent a lot of time in the legislature. And honestly, I don't think that's the most important qualities that make up a legislator. I think we're supposed to be representatives. We should get to know our constituents. We should hear what they have to say. We should be looking to representing them. That's what I bring to the table is being a good listener, is being able to look and meet people where they are and work with them. I'm a strong believer in collaboration. I own a small business, really small business. There's only 3 of us in it. And you know, a big key for us is collaboration. One of my partners lives in St. George, the other one lives in Idaho. It's really difficult to run a small business in Utah with basically by yourself and 2 partners far away. And so collaboration is huge for us. I have family of different religions, and I have friends from every political anything that you can imagine, party or otherwise. And one of the things I've found is that a good conversation is the best way to find common ground. And so that's what I believe in, that's what I bring. So I'm here to listen and to be a representative of District 19. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ray.
I know some of the other folks have said it, but I'm just going to say it again because it's worth saying. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters. Your efforts make our community a better place by hosting events like this and kind of reminding all of us how important it is to have these little bits where we glue together and hear each other out. And thank you to all of you for coming down tonight. I have served in the legislature for 2 terms. For 4 years now, and I'm running for re-election. It has been a great experience. I have really enjoyed it a lot. It is I would say, a quintessential American experience to be down there. Other countries in the world have legislatures, but they do it because they watch how we do it. And I think how it happens in Utah has really made me appreciate what a great state this is. And I feel like we have a much better process even than on a national level of getting things done and working together and finding solutions even of very difficult problems. My top priorities are to have our state and our town of Bountiful, which is what my district is, be a great place for families. And to me what that means is a place that has good schools, where parents can trust their kids are getting a good education, where it's a good environment for businesses to thrive, so businesses can do well and not be put out of business by over-regulation from the government, where we have clean air to breathe and a healthy environment for everyone to live in, and where there's quality healthcare that we can afford to get to. The things that I have focused on in my individual projects up there, I've spent a lot of time working on Medicaid because of my background as a physician. That's going to be a constant battle to keep costs low and still get people the services that they need. I've worked a lot on the opioid epidemic. We've made some good first steps, and I still intend to work on that more. And also on school safety, both over this summer and in the upcoming session, to find ways that we can be assured that our kids are going to be safe at school.
Thank you so much. Okay, Matt.
Yeah, hello everyone. As you can tell, I am not Melissa Ballard. You can tell that because I have a beard. No, Melissa wishes she could be here tonight. She wanted to be. She had actually RSVP'd as soon as the invitation was sent out, but as many of you may know, her mother-in-law, Barbara Ballard's sister, Barbara Ballard, passed away, and they had events going on with that tonight, and so she's unable to attend. So I'm not going to speak for her or in her behalf on policy issues, but what I did want to do is just read a statement about her vision for the state, and then encourage you, if you want to contact her, for those that live in House District 20, to pick up some of the campaign literature. All of her literature has her cell phone number, email address, and she is very responsive. I've helped her, worked on her campaign, and her priority has been mentioned as collaboration with constituents. So, without further ado, this is my vision for our state. Our state has one of the best economies in the country. This success has come in large part because of our wonderful quality of life, skilled workforce, expanding businesses, and amazing outdoor opportunities. Utah is also one of the fastest growing states in our nation. And as a state, our population is expected to double in the coming years. And as a state legislator, I will work tirelessly to protect Utah values while also helping to plan responsibly for the growth that will be needed in education, infrastructure, air quality, and economic development. As you consider who will represent your values and your vision for what should be in the Utah House of Representatives, I would be honored to have your vote. So once again, that's her thoughts for this area, for this state. So I'd encourage you to pick up her contact information and give her a call if you live in House District 20, get to know her. As has been mentioned, thank you for attending. A successful democracy is predicated on participation, so it's wonderful to see so many folks here.
Thank you so much. Ryan.
Hi, my name is Ryan Jones. I'm running for House District 20. I grew up here in Davis County. I went to the University of Utah to get my bachelor's degree in political science. Went to Westminster and got my master's in business there. I currently work out in Centerville at a company called True Golf. We make golf simulators. I know it's a hard job. Somebody's got to do it. But that job has allowed me to work in an interesting cross-section of the economy. We make both the software, which allows us to hire programmers, work in web design, and we also manufacture the booths. So we actually work in steel manufacturing and aluminum manufacturing. So we touch quite a broad section of skills and capabilities that are here inside our own county. Basically, almost everything we produce at True Golf is done here locally, which we're very proud of. Bringing jobs and money back to our state. Part of the reason I have run is that this year we had a record number of signatures on ballot initiatives, and what that shows us is that the legislature is a little out of step with what the citizens are expecting or have been wanting, and I'm part of that. So, going forward, what I'm looking to do is, help improve, what our teachers get paid, our school experiences. I've got 4 kids. My oldest now is in 3rd grade, and he's in a split 3rd and 4th grade class, which shows me we're not putting enough resources into what we give our children to give them the best possible education. So, going forward, I'll be focused on education issues, business issues, and focusing on smart growth for the community. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And you've been thanking the audience for being here. We want to thank each one of you for being willing to run. It's good to have good people who are running for office. All right, the next question, we're going to start with Bob. Thanks, Matt, for doing that. Okay, what do you believe are the most important issues affecting Davis County, and what will you do to resolve them? And we had a question for the audience. Can you do it in a bipartisan manner? Work together. Go ahead.
Sure, I can answer that. The number one issue that we are facing in Davis County is growth. There is absolutely no question on that. I think the comment was made by someone down the line that said that it's projected that our state will double. It's not projected, it will happen. It'll probably end up being more than twice the amount. I can tell you in Layton City, we've seen here in the past week 2 major businesses that have come in and talked to us. There's a 3rd one that are coming in, and we are talking, coming in with 5 jobs. One of them is the possibility in the future of maybe up to 3,000 to 5,000 jobs that could happen with this. And so this growth is happening around us continually. And what we have to be able to figure out here in the county is how we're going to handle it. And it ties into all things transportation. We have to figure out how we're going to move people throughout the county. We have to figure out how we're going to house people throughout the county. There's a lot of concern with people because there's becoming more and more discussion about multiple housing. But what's happening with this younger generation is that this is what they're after, the size of lots. People want smaller lots, even though my age still likes to see the big lots. But these are the attitudes and things that are changing, and we have to figure out within our county how we're going to handle this, how we're going to educate people. There is no question that to bring these jobs in, these are very high-paying jobs. These are becoming high-tech things that are taking place out there. We have to be able to educate our children and be able to have them ready to be able to go into these jobs. We have an excellent employer with Hill Air Force Base. Some of you from the South and maybe you're not familiar with it, but Hill Air Force Base, I think, accounts for the economy of close to $5 billion. It has over 26,000 jobs that are basically on base. And this is so important to us. These new jobs that are coming in will most likely be tied to the base with what is there. And I'm out of town, out of time, but growth is the key thing in all aspects of it.
Thank you. Adam.
Thank you. I think I'll echo some of those comments. I think one of the most important issues facing Davis County is growth, but I want to get a little bit more granularized, and I think with that growth becomes the priority to educate the children who are inevitably going to be raised in Davis County and then also want to settle down in Davis County. I think education of our children is the most important and the pressing issue that we have in Davis County. The unfortunate reality is that Utah is the 6th lowest in the nation for salaries for teachers. And we're not going to have a lot of good growth in Davis County if we're not attracting the best and the brightest teachers to teach our students and our children. Our children are our most valuable resources. And so what I would like to do is focus on getting teacher salaries to raise, to make it competitive for teachers to want to come here, to come to Davis County and to teach and to live here and to make an investment in Davis County. And the second part of that question is whether I could work in a bipartisan way, and the answer is yes. I talked a little bit earlier about my background. My background is working in a way where there are two really angry parties, and they don't like each other, and sometimes they have to come to a solution to settle a dispute. And I'm used to doing that, and I can work in a bipartisan way. I'm used to doing that. I'm not a terribly what's the word, a critical person or an adversarial person. I like to find common ground and work together, and so I would do that to focus on education in Davis County.
Thank you very much. Tim?
So I think we're going to get a lot of probably reiteration of the same things. I agree with Bob that Mayor Stevenson, really growth is the biggest thing, and then there are a whole host of issues that come along with that. One of the biggest is that we sort of need big picture vision in terms of how we grow, and yet most of the decisions on how we grow are made at very localized levels, and it's really hard for this city to work with this city, or work with that city to sort of work comprehensively. So one of the real challenges is how, in a system where a lot of little decisions are making the difference, can we really sort of get broad buy-in and vision. We have to do that if we want our transportation system to work. We have to do that if we want our education system to work. We have to do that if we want enough water for all the people that are going to come here and live here after us. So that's one of the interesting things. One of the things, we wouldn't have a state at all if we didn't have water, right? And if the pioneers hadn't had the foresight, and some of those that went before us had the foresight to build the infrastructure that we have today. One of the real challenges moving forward, though, is can we get enough of that water to add, new supply for all the people that are coming without doing things like, for example, just getting rid of destroying the Great Salt Lake. So that's the area that I'm working right now. I can't imagine a harder and more complicated issue than trying to find a way to keep that lake sustained, which is very important for our air quality and quality of life and a whole host of other issues. Sustain it even as we find additional supplies for all the people that are coming. So I am grateful that as a state we tend to have a long view of things, and we tend to make decisions working together, and that's really the last part of the question. I've tried to do that throughout my relatively short political career, and that's what I would propose to continue to do, which is we need to work together to solve tough problems and have the vision and the foresight to make the decisions today that will allow for that brighter tomorrow. We can't wait for the disaster before we act.
Thank you. Joe?
I agree with actually a lot of what was said right there. A lot of the things that the biggest problem I agree with is growth, mostly because of what it means for each person. we're going to have water issues for each person. We're going to have land use issues. We're going to have ownership issues. You know, all these property rights. These are all fundamental rights that we need to make sure that we can secure. And a lot of that is at the smallest local level. You're talking your counties and your cities and your towns, and all these areas are making big differences in your lives. And I think that as far as the role of the state and the legislature in that is that we need to make sure the legislature helps to facilitate to maintain the good things for the individuals. So, for example, we need to try and smooth out some of the zoning issues where we have counties or cities that are stopping people from living in places that are fine to be lived in, but they don't like them because it's a mixed use area or because they think there's too much commercial use there. You know, why can't we need more mixed spaces where people can live in other places? You know, I can't remember who it was. Some up here said that there's room for improvement as far as, you know, new generations have new ideas on what land use and ownership looks like, and that's true. And we can allow for that. We can allow for people to make their own decisions to actually run their own lives. I know it's a novel concept, but we can actually let people make their own decisions. The state doesn't have to be involved in every single little decision. Now, as far as the big stuff, yeah, I think we do need some help. Infrastructure is a big one. I'm very concerned about water infrastructure because I see that as something that could make or break the state for the next 50 to 100 years. And so that's one of my big things I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Right.
So it's an interesting question to ask a legislator who has one little district, what do you think the issue is for the county, right? Which is a larger space. It's, you know, 7 or 8 legislative districts put together, but that is something that you kind of have to think about as a legislator. You have your own little district, and then how do you also honor or think about the bigger pieces that you work on? And in that respect, I want to kind of give big thanks to Representative Hawks, who's here, right? So over the time that he's been in the legislature, he has worked to put together the Northern Utah Caucus. So to say, hey, look, there's issues that are bigger than our individual districts, but that do affect kind of our area as a whole. And so let's have those legislators meet together some and just spend some time thinking about those larger issues. And already we've had some good things come from that help us think about the county as a whole, about Northern Utah as a whole, and make some better decisions that do apply over that larger area instead of just our one little district at a time. And hopefully some other good things yet to come. The answers that you've heard already show that the question says, well, what is the one most important issue? And it isn't just one issue, right? In order for us to carry on, we have to have a transportation system that works. We're in the middle of working on, and it's still a really high priority. We have to get the northern part of I-15 expanded. We have to get Highway 89 expanded. We have to get the other portion of the legacy highway put in, or we are not going to be able to even get between the north part of the county and the south part of the county. So that's kind of an infrastructure underneath, and we're still struggling with housing affordability so that we and our children who come after us will even be able to afford to live here in the county. So to me, that's probably our 2 biggest issues, but there's plenty of others that have been mentioned.
Thank you so much. Ryan?
I'm going to kind of piggyback off this large piggyback that's been going on, but for me, when you talk about growth, when you're talking about transportation, that comes down to energy and clean air still, something we struggle with every winter when the inversion rolls in. So for me, it's making sure we have the right energy policies, the right approach to our air, that as we bring more people in, that they want to be here and they want to stay here, and that, you know, we keep the state beautiful and pristine as it is, and that's focusing, you know, on renewable energies, more solar panels, you know, more efficient cars, that as, you know, obviously more freeways, more bus routes, more light rail, that we can actually move the people around here and keep, you know, and get people to the jobs that they need to get to. I mean, even at, you know, where I work currently, just in Centerville, we still have guys that have to drive in quite a ways right now to get to the jobs that, you know, that we're offering and have. And coming part of that is, you know, working on the affordable housing. I know that that's tricky in a lot of communities where people don't want to see how their traditional neighborhoods, you know, size of lots and everything change. But, you know, growth is a great problem to have, but we need to step up and meet it. And I do think this is you know, one of the problems that people can come together and work with each other on, because, you know, the more people that come here, the better the opportunities are for everyone here.
All right, thank you. Tamara?
A lot of the issues, like we said, is water and clean air. When we have storms, which are like causes like affect storms, when we have water in that lake. So we need to work on trying to funnel some more water to that so we can have like for storms that fill the natural resource, which is the greatest snow on earth, which also fills the reservoirs, which supplies us with drinking water. There's an underground aquifer that goes from approximately Brigham City down to here that is the drinking water aquifer for the whole Wasatch Front. And if we don't keep that full, and there's been a couple times that it's been iffy, that we aren't going to have drinking water for as many people that are coming in. We need to have that water because you know what happens when you have less water? The price goes up. And a lot of cities have been raising their water fees because of the fact that it has gotten more expensive to get that culinary water. The Great Salt Lake is our main source for our storms. We need it filled so we can have those lake effect storms even in the summertime. If we could have had lake effect storms when the storms came across, that would have been awesome. We had to have a hurricane come in from the south to give us any storms pretty much for the whole summer. And that just happened this last week. And we got almost as much rain as we would have gotten the entire summer. Schools, we need more schools. With all the population we have in the schools, most classes are between 35 and 40 students per classroom. That is a difficult task for a teacher, and they're very underpaid for having to teach that many students. We need more schools, we need more teachers, we need to pay them better. I totally agree on all that. Nonpartisan. In cities are nonpartisan. When you run for an office in a city, it is nonpartisan. There is no politics of that sort involved whatsoever. There is no parties. Sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next question. Utah voters will have 7 questions or initiatives and constitutional amendments. They will be on the ballot in November. Do you strongly support or oppose any of these, and why? And then what will be the impact if it passes? All right, let's start with Adam.
So one of the themes that you'll hear from me today is education, education, education. And to that point, question number 1, or proposition number 1, I think is the most important ballot question that we will have, and I strongly support that ballot question. What that will do is have a 10%, 10 cent, per gallon tax hike on gasoline. And that will go to the districts. I was doing some research for the district, for the school that my children go to. It will increase the budget for that school by $56,000 for Taylor. I have 4 children. They go to public schools, and they're going to continue to go to public schools. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can do for our children is to vote for that. It's a good start for education, and I strongly support it. I want to echo something else that Ryan said also. The fact that there are 7 ballot questions is an indictment against the current legislature. There's something going on the Hill where they're not listening to what constituents want, what constituents need. Things just keep getting on the ballot because the legislature isn't being responsive to what people want. And this question number 1 is a perfect example. And so I strongly support that. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Adam. Tim.
Well, thanks. It's fun in 2 minutes to deal with 3 propositions, 3 constitutional amendments, and a non-binding opinion question. Let me just tell you, I did do a fairly thorough analysis of this. If you look at my website, it's timhawks.org. And you can see just sort of a primer on each one of these issues, and I do take a position on each one of these issues. I'll spoil the surprise by saying I'm opposed to each one of the initiatives, all 3 of them. I support all three of the constitutional amendments, and I oppose the non-binding opinion question. But let me give you just a little bit of context that hopefully helps you sort these. Just think about them. One is when we talk about ballot propositions, so the statement's made that the reason there are ballot propositions is because the legislature doesn't work. We elect the legislature to consider these issues, and each one of the ballot initiatives that are on the ballot are basically a special interest pushed a specific idea. That idea failed to get through the legislature in quite the form, that didn't go far enough, fast enough for the advocates. So they go outside that system. A special interest group writes the language. There's no opportunity to have committee hearings on it. There's none of the checks and balances that apply to the legislative process. There's no opportunity for amendment. There's no dealing with the financial implications of that ballot initiative. It's just thrown in the lap of the legislature. So my presumption on ballot initiatives is no, unless there's a really compelling reason. For just that reason, it goes outside of our normal constitutional processes. In terms of the last non-binding opinion question, I just think it's a poor vehicle to fund education. I've consistently supported lots of education funding since I've been in, but putting it in a declining source of revenue, which is the gas tax, is not a stable or consistent way to fund it. And let me just be clear, that's not, the voters didn't come up with that. That was part of a deal that the legislature reached, and the legislature itself voted to say, voters, do you want to raise your taxes for additional funding for education? That's why that ballot initiative's why it's on the ballot, and I voted to support it, to ask the voters.
All right, thank you. Joe?
So I guess we'll just go through each one real quick, huh? We can make it pretty easy. On the constitutional amendments, I don't see any reason why not. So yes, so that's 3 of them. Now we're down to 4. On the non-binding opinion question, no, I do not want my taxes raised. I imagine you don't either. And then on the 3 propositions, Proposition 2, this is where I get to be dangerous. Yes, I vote yes on Proposition 2, although I don't actually disagree with what Tim said. Yeah, he's right. It is a special interest group that pushed a very specific idea that the legislature dropped. That's totally true. Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, there's not a better way to describe what all of these propositions are. These are very, very extraordinarily specific things that a group of people want and has caught on. And I happen to agree with this one. I think that we should be able to, that patients should be able to have access to medical cannabis. And do I think the proposition is perfect? No, because that's ridiculous. But is it better than the solution that's been offered so far? Yeah, I mean, the best thing we have so far is a draft of a bill. That's it. On Proposition 3, generally I say no to any kind of increase in pretty much any government program. And I'm going to stick with that for now on the Medicaid, although, to be honest, one of the few things I think that is worthy of spending for governments is to help the citizens when they can't help themselves. And Proposition 4, I would love to say that, oh, it's going to make a huge difference, but I just don't think it is. I don't see Proposition 4 making a big difference, especially because the 2 major parties still pick the people that are on the commission, so I don't see what the difference is. So no on 4.
All right, thank you, Joe. Ray?
So Constitution Amendment A and B I support, and I think those are fairly consensus. Constitution Amendment C gives me a little bit of pause. Right now, when we call special session, the understanding is that it's three people that need to agree. The governor by law, that he doesn't do it unless the Senate President and the Speaker of the House also agree, and then we call it. And this constitutional amendment basically takes that down to 2. It says the governor doesn't need to agree. If the Speaker of the House and the Senate President have enough support in their bodies, then they can call a special session. That might turn out very well. I wonder if 15 and 20 years from now would mean that we had a lot more special sessions that were called. I'm not sure how that will play out. On the non-binding opinion question, I voted to put that on the ballot, and I will support whichever way the voters go. I think that's an important question, and I'm glad that the voters are the ones that are going to decide about it. On Proposition 2, if you've been following that in the news, There has recently been a compromise proposed, and where some of the advocates and opponents have said, hey, we will agree on a compromise position. The governor has said that he intends to call a special session whether the initiative passes or not. So either way, he says, I'll call a special session to put this compromise. And I very much support that compromise. To me, it makes some very good steps to make, if we're going to have medical cannabis, to have it be more medical. That it's not just anything goes, it's in a medical form, it's a dose, it's instructions, the same as any other prescription. So I do support that compromise, and I'm glad that we're going to consider that whichever way the ballot initiative goes. I support Proposition 3. I think it's important for us to get basic medical services to people. It is a tax increase to cover that, so that also is the question before the voter. But I saw 2 people in clinic today who have gone without medical services in ways that are going to be dangerous to them, when I wish there would have been a safety net in place for them. Proposition 4, I support.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Hi. So I guess I'll go through these one by one. I do support the Proposition 1 to increase funding to schools. You know, at this point we need to take it where we can get it. You know, where my children go to school and we have split classrooms shows that we still aren't putting enough there, and that we need to put even more there. So I hope that passes and that there's more money available and that we continue to build on that momentum. For Proposition 2, I'm also in favor of it. And even with the special session coming, I do believe, you know, it's everyone's intent to make cannabis available to patients who need it, and we should vote for it even as, you know, an insurance policy essentially, because you never know what's going to happen when people get together. You don't know if you're going to get tripped up on any kind of language or any kind of feeling, so it's better just to have it in place, ready to go for the people who need it. I'm in favor of Proposition 3, which is the Medicaid expansion. Currently, Utah has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation, but we still have a much higher uninsured rate as compared to our employment rate. So there are people who have jobs who aren't able to afford health care right now, who are outside the bubble, and this will give them, you know, the steps they need to be covered to make sure their children and everything are taken care of. I've had friends who've been unemployed who've used it, who've had children there. It is, you know, an invaluable service that we can provide to our fellow citizens. I'm in favor of Proposition 4. I believe that as much as we can pull, you know, partisanship out of drawing lines is, you know, better for everybody, and I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Tamara.
Last week I zoomed through these because I thought I only had a minute, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time. Sorry, I'll float over here. First, Constitutional Amendment A. I think that if they're using it as a rental, they need to pay property tax. Constitutional Amendment B, no, because I believe this was created specifically for the Inland Port Authority, because in the code it's in 1158-601, it says that they will be exempt from property tax for 25 years. So if you're taking away that property tax for 25 years, who else is going to be paying for it? Taxpayers are going to pay for that. Constitutional Amendment C, I don't agree with that because I don't like them always having to call special sessions. And I feel that any time that they pass something, that they should read the entire document. And with the Inland Port Authority, most of the ones I talked to didn't read any of that thing of all of the legislation of it. They only read the little 3-page synopsis that they were given. Non-binding opinion question number 1. If it is for schools, yes. There's too much that's being taken away from transportation, especially for this Inland Port Authority, that should just stay there. If it's going to be run by independent business owners and such, then it should be paid for by them, not by the taxpayers. Schools need the money. Proposition number 2, yes, but as long as it is regulated as a good quality medication for people. We don't want them having bad medicine given to them. Proposition 3, yes, I think that there are people that need Medicaid and Medicare so that they can get health care, and so it's provided for them. Proposition number 4, I don't like it when there's people that are appointed. Because then they're not, it's just a friend of somebody that's already there. It's usually not somebody that was elected by the public that should be, they're supposed to be representing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bob?
On the constitutional amendments A, B, and C, I would support all of those. I would like to just take 1 second on Amendment C, dealing with the convening of the legislature in special session. I do believe that the governor should be involved. The governor is who we elected as the leader of our state, and as the leader of the state, I believe he needs to be involved with this process, whether we like him or not, or her or not. It's still the leader of the state, and we need to allow that. On the non-binding opinion question, I think one of the things that need to be clarified on that is that the reason they're putting the 10 cents on the gas tax, which seems kind of strange if it goes to education, it actually doesn't in that sense. What's taking place right now is that there are a lot of dollars coming out of the general revenue of the state, which is being put into transportation, because the gas tax does not create enough revenue to cover what we need to for transportation. So by putting this dime on there, that means there'll be more dollars going to transportation, which then means the dollars that are being pulled out of the general revenue will then be able to go to education, which they'll use that, in a sense, that 10 cent, instead of coming out, it will then go to education. I do believe it's a good thing. There is no question that it is a declining fund as time goes, and more electric vehicles, and as cars get better gas mileage, it does hurt a little bit as far as the revenues building. But one of the things that is taking place right now is what's called a road usage charge. And at some time in the future, which could be in 2 or 3 years, the gas tax very well may go away, and there will be basically a fee that will all be charged based upon our mileage with what is there. Dealing with, I'm going to run out of time here, but I want to just take a second on the cannabis. I think that as far as medically being able to help people, we need to do it in whatever way we can. But I do believe that the problem that is on this proposition with the cannabis is it's too wide open. It very well could allow for there to be marijuana grown locally. There could be the ease of becoming more recreational use, and we don't want that. We want it to be able to help people that are in need, and it has to be controlled. This proposition is too wide open, and so it really should be defeated.
All right, thank you so much. Let's do just 1 minute on this. It says education takes a huge percentage of our state budget, but the problems always seem to be the same despite giving more money. What are some out-of-the-box ideas that you have that could actually affect education in a positive way? Let's start with Tim.
Thanks. It's a great question. It's one I've given a lot of thought to. It's interesting, as I talk to teachers, the single biggest complaint isn't their salary. The single biggest complaint is that in many cases they don't have the freedom to do what they signed on to do, which is to teach in the classroom without a ton of oversight. We pass, I don't know, over 100 education bills a session, and before those bills can even be implemented by the districts, we're passing more of them. Part of the problem lies with the legislature there, but part of the problem lies with the citizens, because oftentimes when you have a problem, instead of going to the local school board, which has the accountability, come to the legislature says, well, I'm going to solve it, and I'm not the person to solve local education issues. So I think restoring respect for our teachers and giving them the freedom to do what they do best, which is touch the minds and hearts of their students, is probably the single most important thing we can do, and it's incumbent on all of us to help in that effort.
Thank you so much. Joe.
I think that's a really good point. Teachers need the freedom to teach. And I think that another point is we have this newfangled thing called the internet. I know, it's new. You've never seen it before. But we all use it. We use YouTube and Google, and it's amazing what we can do now, because we have the ability to go to school to anywhere in the world. I just took a class from a professor in China on business in Europe. Okay, so I just finished that class actually today, and the interesting thing, that class cost me $10 and was good for 10 credit hours in Utah. Yeah, boy, that's different, huh? So instead of maybe just shoving money at a problem, maybe we can work a little bit smarter. We can use the resources that are available and then empower teachers to do what they need to do.
Thank you so much. Ray?
So one of the things that I think we need to work on, we've made some starts, is be more sparing about how much testing we require in the classes. We have testing requirements that come from the district, we have testing requirements that come from the state, we have testing requirements that come from the federal government, and it really adds up to one of the many burdens that we hang around our teachers' neck. And there are certainly ways on a state level, I think, that we could still get the information we need and not take so much time away. I know some starts have been made in that direction, but I think there's more steps that need to be made in that direction. We also continue to work towards just competency-based education instead of a seat time-based education, that you're not just measuring how long you've been sitting there in the seat and then pass you off, but do you know the material? When you know the material, whether that's quicker or whether that's slower, that is when you move forward. And we have benefited from technologies that we have in the classroom. It's been really interesting to me in the 4 years I've been in the legislature to watch what has changed in the classrooms. There is more technology there. It's being used regularly, and we'll continue to make good improvements in that way, I hope.
Thank you. Brian?
I think one of the things we can do is look at what's succeeding in other parts of the state. Right now in Salt Lake County, they have a program where they bring in older teachers to come into the classroom with newer teachers and go through training with them. You know, right now the retention rate is about 50% in the first 3 years for teachers, but in Salt Lake County they've had an increase in being able to keep people there. Part of it, in talking with people who've worked in the program, is, you know, it helps new teachers adjust to what they're up against in the classroom and to make sure that the career is right for them to begin with in the first place. And I think looking at those types of programs and, you know, harnessing the resources that we already have, you know, people capital, and investing it back into our new teachers can lead to better outcomes that way.
Thank you. Tamara?
Well, I was a crossing guard when the Common Core and SAGE testing was implemented. And you could see a huge difference in the teachers and the students. The students didn't understand what was going on. The teachers weren't brought up to speed before it was thrown in at them. It just was not a good idea to just throw in there for the teachers, the ones that I dealt with. And the kids, for years I would help them with their homework while they were waiting to be picked up at the crosswalk. And because they knew that I tutored a lot of them anyway at the school. And so it made it difficult for the kids. A lot of them had a lot of issues because they were starting to fail. Kids that were doing really good. So we do have to need to structure it towards the learning and how the kids can learn better. That's what I liked about being with the Spectrum program. Those teachers were allowed to teach the kids as the kids learned. And it was more individualized, and the kids learned a lot more that way. And it needs to be more structured for the kids.
Thank you. Bob?
You know, the question was out of the box. So here's the thing. First of all, there's no way we can educate students at any level unless we have good instructors. That is the number one thing that has to be there. Instructors are good, you're going to get good education to the children. The second thing, though, that I think that we have to look at is that in our day's world, our working world with what's taking place around us right now, is that there's becoming more and more specialties. And there's one of the things that we've learned up at the base with working with them, because there's a desire and a need for almost 500 new engineers every year that will be tied into that base working with the F-35 and the ICBMs. Missiles that are going to be renovated up there, is that we have to be able to learn how to take these kids, and maybe when they're ninth graders, if they have an interest in going into an engineering or a technical field, is to be able to teach them so that by the time they become a senior, they're qualified to be able to step into some of these positions. And then at that point, turn around and have the employer be the one who can help pay them as they go into their undergraduate or into a master's program. But it helps kids get into the system and helps us get the workforce stronger.
All right, Adam.
So one of the out of the box solutions that we could use is to cast a wider net when it comes to who can teach or guest teach in our schools, so that the community members can become more involved. People who maybe have a profession in a technical capacity and want to come and teach high school children or high school students certain methods and career paths that these kids might not already think about. And I think that could be done with appropriate pedagogical supervision and really encourage the community members to get involved with public education to teach in those capacities could be really important. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's wind this up now. We appreciate you coming tonight. Please take 2 minutes to tell us why we should vote for you and what you hope to accomplish. And we'll start with Joe.
You should vote for me because my idea as a legislator is not to take over your life. It's not to create so many rules and regulations and laws that we take the money out of your pocket, we take the property away from you, we take everything that you built over your lifetime and reduce it to taxes and reduce it to being able to not give you what you want. I think that you need to be able to fend for yourself, but the state needs to be there a little bit, to help out a little bit. But we are not. The state is not here to take over your life. It is not here to be your catch-all. It's not. And I'm sorry to the people that want it to be, it's not. Should we help people who are in need? Yes. But does that mean that everybody has to have the exact same benefits to them? No. Does everybody need the same things? No. We can provide a baseline, and that's okay. And I think that we can all agree on that. But I don't think that we need to be so deep in your pocket that it's costing you 3 months of work to pay your taxes for the year. That seems a little far. I don't think we need to be so deep in your pockets that you end up losing your house because you can no longer pay the property taxes. I don't think we need to be so far into your lives that you can't make the choices and pursue your own happiness. That's unnecessary. We don't need a state that big. We need a state to help us when we need help and to get out of the way when we don't. I think most of the time, you probably don't need that much help. You seem capable to me. You seem like you could probably make your own decisions. And so I want to empower you to make your own decisions. So you know what I'm most likely to do in the legislature is probably say no.
All right, Ray, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to us answer all these questions. Hopefully you'll stick around afterwards and we can answer one-on-one questions that you might have. In the time that I've been in the legislature, I've done the best I know how to represent Bountiful. I hope I've had individual interactions with each of you that you would agree that I have done that. I worked hard to respond when you email me, to call you back when you call me on the phone, to understand what folks here want and what they wish, which sometimes those go at cross purposes where you hear people arguing on both sides of the issue, and that's how it should be, that there should be different voices, and then to do my best to sort that out as I can figure out what the people who live here would like to have done. I've worked hard to understand what teachers need and what our schools need. I've talked to parents, I've talked to students, I've gone to the schools and listened to their administrators and to the teachers to find out what would best help them and try to make our education system match that. I've worked hard to understand our state Medicaid system. We spend as much money on that as we spend on education in the state. If we do that well, people will get basic services at a price that doesn't bankrupt us, and if we do it poorly, then people won't get what they need, and it will bankrupt us. It's really expensive, and that's something that I will continue to work on if you give me the chance. I've worked hard to understand what businesses need, to find ways that government pushes them down, puts more taxes on them than they need, and puts more regulation on them than they need, to say, let's find a way to make it better for you. Let's find a way that you feel invited and welcomed in here to our community, so our community can have a broad array of jobs that people can work at. This can be a good community for all of our families. And I hope I'll get your support and get another chance to keep trying to do those same things. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan.
Again, thank you for coming out. I know you had a lot of options Monday, so spending with us is very nice. The reason you should vote for me is, as I brought up before, we have a lot of ballot propositions this year, so there is a little bit of out of syncness between the legislature and what people want, and I feel I'm on that path for what people want. More responsive politician to the people around me. And, as we really focus in on education, really focus in on clean air and energy that's going to propel us forward and help us focus on more affordable housing, better transportation options. And, you know, I can promise you that I will do my best to, you know, to learn who you are, what you need, answer your questions as they come up, and be involved in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamara?
I don't like being taxed to death. The 3 months of working to pay your taxes, that was a long time ago. Now it's more like 6. Between property tax, income tax, sales tax, gas tax, you just hear tax, 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 tax. And now there's a lot of places that are they're increasing all your fees because they don't want to say the word tax. And when I was mayor, I didn't want a bond for anything. We needed a new fire truck. We made a dedicated fund for that. So every year, a certain amount of money went from the general fund into that, and that's all it goes for. And the city in August got a brand new fire truck fully loaded. No bonding, no borrowing, nothing. I don't like to give businesses tax breaks of any kind. When Maverick came into my city, I told them you're getting location, location, location. And that was the end of it. They didn't ask any more for any more breaks, any tax breaks, any property tax breaks, sales tax. And it's one of their biggest locations revenue-wise since it opened almost 3 years ago. We don't need to give them everything so that taxpayers have to make up the difference. Taxpayers should not be funding businesses to come here. If they want to come here, they'll come here. That's why Maverick came into my city. They wanted location, but they wanted to see if I was willing to give them everything, as I say, give them the cow instead of just giving them a glass of milk. But I don't think that we need to be taxed into oblivion. Right now, there's so many young families that are struggling because they are so taxed that they have to work 2 jobs to kind of afford to live, if you can call it that. I want them to be able to have a home and not be taxed into bankruptcy for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
One of the things that we've worked very hard at Layton City over the past 5 years is to create teamwork. And it's one of the things that we've also been able to do, not only at the county level with the present county commissioners, but also with the state legislators. And I do want to point something out here, and it's nothing against any of the people that are running, but I will say Representative Hawks and Representative Ray Ward have been absolutely wonderful to work for. And I know that a lot of you are from this area, these people represent you. And I can tell you from our position as being mayor of Layton and working with the legislature, these 2 fine men have done absolutely wonderful and worked very hard for your behalf. And they actually have served the entire county with the things that we're doing, and I appreciate that. And that is part of the thing that I think is so important. I would hope that you would consider throwing your support behind me, is the fact that it has to become a very collaborative effort. As we talked about growth, we talked about all the things that go along with growth, as we talked about education. We have to bring everyone together. It's not just going to be handled by one person. I've had people come up to me and say, hey, Mayor Stevenson, you know, we think you've done a great job. And I've always corrected them and said, no, I haven't done a good job. Our team has done a good job. And when you get that team together, and it's no different if you look at competitive sports or you look at business or whatever, when you're able to bring people together and you're able to make things work, that's when you're successful, and that's when things happen good. You can take taxation, as Tammy said. Like I said, in Layton City, we lowered property taxes 2 years in a row, and hopefully we'll do it again next year, and that's my instructions that they get that done. And I hope to see the same thing take place at the county. But to accomplish those types of things can't just be with somebody raising their hand saying, we want you to do it. It has to be figured out with how you can do it. And that's all part of this team effort that goes into making it more efficient, more effective, lowering taxes, making things better, bringing more business in. The whole works of how things have to happen is through what I believe one of the key things, teamwork. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
Well, thanks again. Thank you for listening to me and to listening to all the candidates here, and I appreciate the candidates for being here also and for engaging in this process. I love Davis County. My wife and I love Davis County. When we were deciding where we wanted to put down our roots, we looked to where my family already was. My parents are in Centerville. I graduated from Davis High School, and we decided that this is the place for us. And we're raising our 4 children here. And that love and this passion for this community will really allow me to listen to you and to listen to the voters. If there are issues that you have with education and with how the legislature approaches that. I want to listen, and I want to help you, and I want to solve those problems. And I have a history of solving complicated problems, and I'm excited to do that. And my background enables me to do that. And the legislature does good things in this state. We have a really well-managed state, and I'm grateful for what the legislature has done. But sometimes there needs to be a turnover. Sometimes the dirt gets too hard packed, and you need to have a turnover to introduce some fresh new ideas and some fresh ability to listen, and that's what I represent. And so I hope to have the support of the voters in District 18. Thank you.
All right, Timothy.
Give a politician the last word. I might not give up the mic. But, no, I wanted to thank the league, and I wanted to thank each of you for coming out tonight, and I wanted to thank each of the candidates for running. And I hope that's one thing that's been clear in this debate is these are good folks, and I'm confident that everyone that's on the stage could serve and serve well. That includes my opponent over here. He's a good man, and I think there's many of you in the audience that could serve well. That's the power of a citizen legislature. So sorry to get emotional, but the question then becomes, why me? And all I can tell you is that I feel profoundly the weight of responsibility, what it means to represent 40,000 people and their interests, and to know that their future is in some tiny way in my hands. And I hope that makes me a better legislator and a better person. Public service is challenging, it can be grinding, it can be crushing. Much of the cost of it is borne not by the candidate or the legislator, but by their families. And yet it has been really the great honor of my life to serve in the legislature and serve the people of my district. It takes a while to get your sea legs up there, let me just tell you that. My predecessor says 3 years before you even get comfortable, kind of get your sea legs, and that's about right. So I feel like I'm just starting to learn a little bit of what it takes to serve well. I know that the office is not defined by the person, and one of the things I'm focused on is how can we make sure that the processes we put in place will ensure good outcomes long after anyone on this stage has left the stage. And that's my hope. And thanks again for your time tonight, and I look forward to continue working with you and serving with you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thanks to all of the helpers and to the League of Women Voters. Just a reminder of their website that has voter information. Let's give all of our candidates a big hand. All right, thank you.